Now, I'd love your calls on whether petrol protesters are selfish. 020 7862 2222. Tell us what you think. The Home Secretary, Priti Patel, has called protesters blocking oil depots selfish, fanatical and dangerous. Over the weekend, Just Stop Oil, as they're called, tried to block petrol deliveries from getting to forecourts, and that led to some petrol stations running out of fuel altogether. More than 20 million drivers are expected to take to the road this Easter weekend if they can fill up their cars. So are the protesters selfish, as the Home Secretary says? Ashley, what do you think?
Yeah, I think they are selfish. I understand the climate crisis. I understand that in order to protest, for example, the suffragettes, you have to disrupt things to make people pay attention. However, why it affects innocent people like us who are just trying to get to work or visit the elderly or sick people in hospital or whatever it is. And chain yourself to Parliament, chain yourself, write to your MP, chain yourself to like the people who are making decisions. And also, what is the alternative? Like, how would you like people to get to work? Because I actually looked into getting an electric car and they're very, very, very expensive. And surely we should be protesting against car manufacturers and politicians who are actually making all the decisions rather than us, the good, hard-working people trying to get about our business.
I was talking to a guy on Saturday who drives professionally. And I said, what are you doing on Sunday? And he said, I'm going to be finding diesel. He said it's really hard to find. Now, he actually lived up in the West Midlands. So this is a map here of where the oil terminal protests are happening. And you can see that it's the southeast Midlands, Kingsbury Oil, BP Oil Depot, Esso Petroleum, outside Birmingham, Buncefield. Remember there was a fire there once. Interterminals, Purfleet, Navigator terminals, and so on. And then you can see Extinction Rebellion here, Hythe, Hamble, Esso West. My goodness. Let's hear the case for these protests from Just Stop Oil and Louis McKechnie. And you're in Grays Oil Terminal, Louis?
Yeah, I'm in Grays Oil Terminal. We've been here 28 hours and it's the most miserable experience of my life so far.
I'm going to show people where you are. So great, this is a really big one. Grays in Essex there. Why did you go there?
Why do we go there? Because we don't have a choice. Because the government refuse to listen when the scientists say oil is killing us. The government refuses to listen when the scientists say we need to transition away from fossil fuels. And so if they won't transition away, we'll force them because it's our lives on the line.
James Max.
Look, if it's that important and if your argument is that strong, why don't you stand for election? Why are you doing this? Why are you costing even more money when people can't afford it? They can't get to work. They can't live about their lives. It's nothing that they can do anything about. If it's that important and you think that the end of the planet is there, just stand for election or leave it.
It just wouldn't work. People have been trying for decades and decades, standing for election for these sort of issues. It never works.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think that is,
brothers? I'm going to do what's going to save my life.
Oh, yeah. It's going to save your life.
Can you see, Ashley, can you see the logic here that, you know, he's a young guy, the planet's on fire, he's trying to do something?
Look, I admire people for trying to do something. I just think you're targeting the wrong people because how would you like people to get to work? And I also ask you, is there an element of hypocrisy? Because do you eat meat? Like, where do you buy your clothes? Have you never, ever driven in a car? I feel like you should be targeting, like I said, car manufacturers to make electric cars cheaper, the government to, chain yourself to Parliament. Why not chain yourself to Parliament? But how are we, the general public, meant to get to work? And as you said, your friend is having to drive around to find diesel.
Well, that's so
therefore, is he consuming more diesel?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Louis, think about the Easter weekend. Think about really young families who they're stretched, things are tough, the cost of living. They don't actually... You know, they're probably not big consumers. They're not multi-millionaires. They're just trying to have a break. And you're going to ruin it. You're going to totally ruin it.
You're right. We're all hypocrites. We're not perfect doing this, but we don't need to be perfect to demand better from our government. They're failing us. They're betraying us. They're a traitor to the British people, and we won't stand for it. Do you believe the IPCC report, the UN General Secretary, when they say we need to transition away from fossil fuels now?
Sure, but the government's got this net zero thing, which a lot of their own backbenchers say is too ambitious.
The net zero thing, which their most recent energy strategy says they need to build more fossil fuel infrastructure in the near future, which directly contradicts what the UN General Secretary said. So you said you believe the UN General Secretary when he says it's now or never and we need to transfer away from fossil fuels.
Well,
I'm glad for your support.
James maybe
I would
doesn't.
say, Louis, that what if I don't believe the UN? What if I don't think that that's the right course of
And
action?
a science denier, and you're a traitor to the British people.
But you're a
meant
traitor to the British
up.
people
You're a
because
traitor
you're
to the-
causing misery.
Exactly.
Okay, listen, I tell you what, Louis, if you stay there, we'll have calls, and then we can put them through to Louis. Go on, Storm. Who we got?
Okay, we're going to speak to Kathleen first from the West Midlands, who thinks it's wrong, much like what Ashley said, to target ordinary people.
Kathleen, go ahead. Louis is listening.
Yes, hello. Hi, good morning, everybody. Yes, I do think they're being very selfish. They are putting everybody out. They are stopping people getting from hospital. But the other thing is, during the winter time, 6 months ago, we didn't hear anything about them. Suddenly, now that the good weather has come back in, we're suddenly hearing about all this. Where were they in the winter?
Louis,
They're
what
saying
about that?
They want to save the planet, but where were they in the winter?
Louis, let Louis answer, Kathleen.
Yeah, okay. So, basically, this campaign only started a few months ago, and I would also like to address the being called selfish. You're right, in a sense, we're doing this because we don't want to die. That's selfish. That's about our own personal lives. But it's also about your children's lives who are also on the firing line. Yeah. I'd also like to point out the government being selfish every time they sign one of these new licenses, one of these new consents, they're signing our death warrants. Oh. We're not safe just because we're in a rich country. The food's going to run out here too if we don't mitigate the climate crisis now.
Kathleen was asking why you weren't protesting in the winter when people needed fuel to heat their homes.
Too cold.
Too cold.
What do you mean, why weren't we protesting in the winter?
Yeah.
We were out on the roads. We have not stopped protesting. I haven't taken a day off from this in 6 months. We were mobilising for this campaign.
At home?
Do you use heating at home?
Or how do you stay warm?
Yes, I use heating. You're right, I'm a hypocrite, but you're missing the point. This isn't about personal responsibility. This is about the government betraying the people it stands for.
Let's
This
get
is
another
about
call.
the British government selling us down the river for...
Hang on, James. I want to get another
Are
call.
you okay with that?
Louis, stay with us. Kathleen, thank you. Let's just keep order here. Storm.
We're going to speak to Nicola now from Staffordshire, who thinks the government's inaction is to blame for these protests.
Go on, Nicola.
Yeah, I absolutely 100% agree with what these people are going out and doing.
Right. Because you think that this is a major climate crisis?
Not because it's a major planet crisis. It comes in with everything else. You know, there's people out there that can't eat their own homes. We only have to look at Africa and what is going on over in Africa. It is a knock-on effect from everything else. It's not just about oil. It is about we have to have a different way of living. We have to be more renewable, and people can't see this. It affects our health.
If you say people can't heat their own homes, how does blocking oil help them heat their homes?
Because the price of oil and the amount of oil that we produce in this country, where does it go? 80% is sold.
Okay, all right, Nicola, thank you. Storm?
It doesn't make sense.
Thank you very much. Storm?
We're going to speak to Rosemary now from Suffolk, who's a bit worried about all the disruption.
Go on, Rosemary. You're through to Louis.
Well, I do. I know where they're coming from. I understand the concerns, but I just like to think very carefully about some very personal issues. My brother is being buried on the 19th of April, and people are trying to travel down from Birmingham to Cambridge to say their final goodbye. And we have worked very hard to give my wonderful brother the send-off he deserves. And now we are worried, is our funeral, is it going to be affected? And is it going to affect our final goodbye to our brother?
Louis, you'll have that on your conscience.
Yeah, you're right. This sort of stuff's a huge issue. It weighs on us heavily. Personally, I have a remembrance for my aunt on the 23rd, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make that because of the same issue. And that really, really terrifies me. You know, I really don't want to have to make these sort of sacrifices, but I'm not sure you understand the stakes here. Billions of lives are on the line. What do you want more, to see your children starve or to be able to get to these events? Because that's what's on the line here.
James.
I just think that, I don't know, whatever brainwashing has taken place is extraordinary. I'm just fascinated, though, Louis. So, in terms of what you're talking about, and you said you've been protesting every day, how on earth are you paying your bills? Who's paying for you?
I'm a student. I get the student loan. More importantly, brainwashing, it's from the bloody top scientists on the planet. It's from Sir David King, the chief scientific advisor to both Tory
but the UK,
and Labour governments. It's from the UN
I understand, but the UK provides 1% of global emissions. So this disruption that you're causing to people, if it really is that important, as I said, please stand for election, make sure that we understand it. And I think most people do understand that we need to change how we live in our environment. But don't you realise that you're probably making it worse? There are going to be people queuing up. There are going to be people who have their lives in disruption. And most people who are watching probably won't go with your argument.
Let him answer.
We're meant to be a climate leader, and yet our government refuses to act. Boris says we're a climate leader, yet Germany beats us in renewable funding by 3 times. We're meant to be a climate leader, but yet still our lives are on the line, and still we're having to act. We will stop when the government allows us to stop.
Given the problem is mainly China, would you not consider training yourself to the Chinese embassy instead, or going to Shanghai or Beijing?
Now, it may not be obvious, Jeremy, but I'm British, not Chinese.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking that if they're doing all the polluting, you want to be protesting against them.
The intelligence that we're dealing with here.
Thank you, Louis McKechnie. Thank you very much indeed. Stay safe there. OK, I can see you're in the rafters. Later, Jeremy Vine Extra, where Kevin Maguire and Lucy Beresford will join us. But after the break, your calls, please, on whether Will Smith's 10-year Oscar ban is too harsh. 020 7862 2222. See you shortly.
What is the most common